The diner's neon buzzed faintly in a new city's gloom. March 2025. Michael sat alone, scarred hands cradling a cracked photo of him and Adrian, her smile frozen, his eyes dead. The waitress whispered, "That's the guy who torched half a county." Victory tasted like ash. Adrian was gone, the town a ruin, and Michael a shadow. What broke him so bad he broke them worse? Why's he alone now? The cost of vengeance stretched far beyond that desert night. How did a quiet man become a feared myth? Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from. If you stand for justice against all odds, hit like and subscribe for more stories like this. Dust swirled like a restless ghost across the cracked asphalt of Hollow Sands, Arizona. In the blistering summer of 2023, Michael, a broad-shouldered black man in his mid-30s, wiped sweat from his brow as he unloaded the last box from their rented U-Haul. Adrian, his wife, vibrant even under the relentless sun, fanned herself with a hospital clipboard, her nurse's badge glinting faintly. They'd left behind a bustling, diverse city scammed out of their savings, chasing a fresh start. In this sun-scorched nowhere, the desert town stretched flat and unforgiving, a sprawl of peeling trailers and sunburnt storefronts. Framed by jagged red cliffs that loomed like silent judges, vultures circled overhead, dark specks against a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Hollow Sands wasn't on any tourist map. Population, barely 2,000, all white, all tight-lipped. A place where the air smelled of gasoline and old grudges. Michael, an ex-mechanic with hands rough as the terrain, had landed a gig fixing rigs at a dusty garage. Adrian had scored a night shift at the county hospital, 30 miles out. They'd bought a squat, single-story house on the edge of township, with a sagging porch and a patch of dirt they called a yard. It wasn't much, but it was theirs, a foothold, a chance to rebuild. At first, the hostility was a whisper on the wind. The gas station cashier, a weary man with a faded Confederate cap, gave Michael a curt nod, eyes lingering too long. At the hardware store, a clerk in stained overalls handed Adrian her change without a word, his fingers brushing the counter instead of her hand. Silence followed them like a shadow. Michael shrugged it off, used to worse growing up in a place where race rarely raised an eyebrow. Adrian, ever the optimist, laughed it away, her voice bright as she unpacked dishes that first night. "People'll warm up," she said, flashing that smile that could melt ice. "Give it time." Time didn't help. 3 weeks in. Michael stepped outside at dawn to find their mailbox, a dented metal box on a crooked post, shattered. A rock lay in the dirt, jagged and heavy, the word "nigger" scrawled across it in dripping black paint. His stomach twisted, a slow burn creeping up his spine. Adrian stood behind him, arms crossed, her laugh gone quiet. "Kids being stupid," Michael muttered, grabbing a rag and a can of paint thinner from the shed. He scrubbed until his knuckles ached, the slur fading into a smeary ghost. The mailbox stood again by noon, repainted, but the air felt heavier, the desert heat pressing down like a fist. Adrian didn't say much that day, just kissed his cheek and headed to her shift. Michael watched her taillights vanish into the haze, the vultures still circling above. He told himself it was nothing, a one-off, a prank by some bored punk with a chip on his shoulder. But as he stood there, alone in the stillness, the town's silence rang louder than any shout. Hollow Sands wasn't just quiet, it was watching, waiting, and the wind carried a promise of something darker gathering on the horizon. The sun was a merciless blaze over Hollow Sands 2 months after Michael and Adrian settled in, the desert heat baking the earth into a cracked, unyielding slab. Adrian's night shifts at the hospital had become routine, her little Honda kicking up dust as she rolled out each evening. One Tuesday, Michael woke to a text from her at 3 a.m., car trouble, home late. He rubbed sleep from his eyes, figuring a flat tire or a dead battery, nothing he couldn't fix. But when she pulled into the driveway at dawn, her face was tight, her hands trembling as she gripped the steering wheel. All four tires were slashed, rubber sagging into the dirt like deflated lungs. Tucked under the wiper, a crumpled note flapped in the dry wind, "Go back where you came from," scrawled in jagged red ink. Michael's gut churned as he yanked the paper free, crumpling it in his fist. Adrian stood beside him, her nurse's scrubs wrinkled, her eyes darting to the empty street. "I didn't see who," she whispered, voice thin. "Just heard the screech and found it like this." Michael kicked at the gravel, fury rising like heat off asphalt. He loaded the car onto a tow hitch and drove her to the sheriff's office, a squat brick building with a faded star on the door. Sheriff Tanner leaned back in his chair, a gaunt man in his 60s with sunken eyes and a tobacco-stained grin. Michael laid out the story tires, note, the timing. Tanner barely glanced at the paper before tossing it aside. "Boys will be boys," he drawled, scratching his chin. "No prints, no proof. Could have been anyone. Anyone doesn't slash tires at 2 a.m. Michael snapped, voice low, controlled. Tanner smirked, leaning forward. "Folks round here don't take kindly to troublemakers. Keep your head down, son." Michael's fists clenched, but Adrian's hand on his arm stopped him cold. They left in silence, the sheriff's laugh echoing behind them. That night, Michael patched the tires in the garage, sweat mixing with the sting of betrayal. He wanted to believe it was random, but the town's eyes were everywhere watching, judging. 2 days later, he saw them. Michael was picking up oil filters at the auto shop when a rusted pickup growled into the lot. 3 men piled out, Austin, blonde and cocky, mid-20s, with the swagger of someone who owned the town because his daddy, a state senator, damn near did. Ricky, a twitchy string bean with darting eyes, trailed him like a whipped dog. Jason, a slab of muscle with a shaved head, said nothing, just stared. They didn't buy anything, just leaned against the truck, smirking as Adrian walked home from the bus stop across the street. Austin revved the engine, loud and sharp, making her flinch. Michael stepped out, tool still in hand, and caught Austin's eye. "Problem?" he called, voice steady. Austin grinned. "Slow and mean, no problem, man, just admiring the view." Ricky snickered. Jason's stare didn't waver. Michael crossed the lot, stopping a yard from the truck, wrench heavy in his grip. "Stay away from her," he said, each word a stone. Austin leaned out the window, eyes glinting. "Touch me, and you're done here," asked Tanner. He spat at Michael's boots, a wet splat on the dust, then peeled out, tires screaming. Michael stood there, chest heaving, the spit drying in the sun. Austin had dared him to swing, and he hadn't. Not yet, but the fire in his veins was lit, and it wouldn't go out easy. Weeks bled into each other under the relentless Arizona sun, the memory of Austin's spit still burning in Michael's mind like a brand. Hollow Sands hadn't let up its quiet malice, seeped into every corner of their lives. Adrian changed, slow at first, then all at once. Her laugh, once a melody that filled their cramped kitchen, faded to a ghost. She stopped singing over the stove, her voice replaced by the clatter of pans and the hum of a radio she never turned up. Night after night, Michael watched her lock the front door, then the back, her fingers lingering on the bolts as if they could shield her from the town's hate. She'd pause by the windows, peering through the blinds, jumping at every creak of the porch. One muggy evening, Michael came home from the garage, grease-stained and bone-tired, to find the house dark. "Adrian," he called, voice echoing off the bare walls. No answer. He found her in the bathroom, curled on the tile, sobbing into her knees. In her lap lay a brick jagged, heavy, the word nigger carved deep into its surface. The living room window gaped open, glass shards glinting on the carpet like fallen stars. Michael dropped to her side, heart hammering. "What happened?" he rasped, hands hovering over her trembling shoulders. She didn't look up, just pointed at the brick. "It came through an hour ago. I was right there." Rage flooded him hot and sharp, drowning out the exhaustion. He grabbed the brick, stormed back to Sheriff Tanner's office, the desert dusk painting the sky blood red. Tanner was there, feet up, chewing a toothpick. Michael slammed the brick on the desk, the thud reverberating. "This is your boys. We'll be boys now," he growled. Tanner barely blinked, eyeing the slur like it was a grocery list. "No witnesses, huh?" he said, voice flat. "Could be kids, could be wind. File a report if you want, but I ain't got manpower for this." Michael's fists balled, knuckles whitening. "Do your damn job." Tanner's eyes narrowed, cold as the desert night. "Watch your tone, boy. You're the one mackin' waves." Back home, Michael hid a shotgun under the bed, the metal cold against his palm. He didn't tell Adrian, just kissed her forehead as she stared at the wall. But the harassment didn't stop. Austin's crew grew bolder, their pickup shadowing. Her walks home from the bus stop. They'd roll slow, windows down, hurling slurs. "Hey, girl, you lost," their laughter cutting through the dry air. One night, Michael caught them snapping photos of her from across the street, Austin's phone flashing like a predator's eye. He lunged forward, shouting, "Back off." They peeled out, tires spitting gravel, leaving him choking on dust. And fury, Adrian's eyes told the story her words wouldn't. She wasn't safe anymore. Michael stayed up that night, shotgun across his lap, the house silent except for her shallow breaths behind the locked bedroom door. They won't win. He whispered to the dark, the promise tasting like iron on his tongue. But as the stars glared down through the broken window, he felt the truth gnawing at him. Hollow Sands wasn't just a town. It was a beast, and it was closing its jaws around them both. The desert wind howled through Hollow Sands, a restless snarl that matched the storm brewing in Michael's chest. Adrian's fear had carved itself into their home. Every locked door, every flinch at a passing car fueled his resolve. He couldn't sit still anymore, couldn't let Austin and his pack keep sinking their teeth into her. 3 nights after the brick shattered their window, Michael tracked Ricky, the twitchy one, the coward, to the Rusty Spur, a dive bar on the town's edge. Neon flickered over the lot, casting jagged shadows as Ricky stumbled out, beer bottle dangling from his fingers, his laughter loud and sloppy. Michael waited in the dark, a shadow among shadows, his pulse steady but thunderous. He'd seen Ricky trailing Adrian before, snapping his gum and grinning like it was a game. Not tonight. When Ricky veered into the bathroom, Michael followed, boots silent on the sticky floor. The door swung shut, and before Ricky could turn, Michael had him pinned forearm to his throat, a hunting knife glinting an inch from his Adam's apple. "Talk," Michael hissed, voice low, lethal. Ricky's eyes bulged, the bottle slipping from his hand to shatter on the tiles. "Man, I don't." The knife pressed closer, not cutting, just kissing skin. "Why her? Why us?" Ricky's breath hitched, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's Austin, okay? He hates your kind taken over, says you don't belong." Michael's jaw tightened. "Your kind, like they were less than human. Where's he at?" he demanded. Ricky stammered, "I don't." "Please, man." Michael shifted the blade, a warning. "Austin's place, Route 9, Ricky blurted, voice breaking. "That's all I got." Michael stared into his panicked eyes, then slammed his fist into Ricky's nose, a wet crunch, blood spraying, and Ricky crumpled, whimpering in the mess of glass and beer. Michael walked out, the night air cool against his burning skin. He thought it was a win, a message sent, a line drawn. He slept that night, the shotgun still close, believing he'd bought them breathing room. Dawn broke the illusion. He woke to Adrian's scream, raw and piercing, from the front yard. Stumbling outside, he froze. Every window on their house was smashed, glass glittering like teeth in the dirt. Across the siding, in dripping red spray paint, "Leave or die." The air stank of gasoline and hate. Adrian stood trembling, her robe clutched tight, eyes wide with a terror he couldn't unsee. He called Sheriff Tanner, voice shaking with fury. "Someone hit our house, vandalized it bad." Tanner's laugh crackled through the line, dry as the desert itself. "You stirred the hive, boy. What did you expect?" The phone went dead. Michael stood there, staring at the wreckage, the words searing into his skull. Adrian sank to the porch steps, whispering, "Let's go, Michael. Please." Her voice was a plea, fragile as the glass underfoot. He knelt beside her, hands on her shoulders, firm but shaking. "This is our home," he said, the words a vow and a curse. "We don't run." But as he grabbed a broom to sweep up the shards, the truth gnawed at him. Ricky's bloodied nose hadn't stopped them, it had woken them up. Hollow Sands wasn't backing off. It was coming for blood. And Michael had just thrown the first punch in a war he didn't yet understand. The air in Hollow Sands thickened with menace after the vandalism, the red "leave or die" still streaking their home like a wound that wouldn't heal. Michael's knuckles still ached from Ricky's nose, but the victory felt hollow. Adrian's "please to leave" echoed in his ears, a constant drumbeat against his stubborn pride. It was a Thursday, late September. The desert sky bruised purple as Adrian pulled her night shift at the hospital. Michael was at the garage, elbow deep in a truck engine, when his phone buzzed her number. He wiped grease on his jeans, expecting her usual check-in, her voice warm even through exhaustion. Instead, a whisper rasped through the line. "I need you to come home." Her tone was wrong, shaky, fractured. "What happened?" He pressed, dread clawing his chest. "Please, Michael, just..." Her voice broke, a sob choking the words. "Just come home." He grabbed his keys, the wrench clattering to the floor, and tore through the desert roads, dust billowing behind him when he burst through the door. Adrian sat on the couch, arms wrapped tight around herself, staring at the carpet. Her scrubs were torn at the shoulder, a purple bruise blooming near her collarbone. Michael's heart plummeted, a stone sinking into dark water. He knelt before her, hands trembling as they hovered over her. "Tell me," he said, voice barely steady. She swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "I was coming out of the hospital. End of shift. They were waiting by my car." Michael didn't need to ask who they burned in his mind. Austin, Ricky, Jason. "They cornered me," she went on, her voice a thread above a whisper. "Blocked the driver's side so I couldn't get in. Jason, he grabbed my arm, held me there. Austin, he said I should be more polite when people are just trying to be friendly." Her fingers traced the bruise, then dropped. Michael's pulse thundered in his ears, a war drum. "Did they?" he started, voice cracking. She shook her head fast. "No, they scared me, shoved me down, but they let me go." Her eyes met his, raw and haunted. "This time, we're going to the police," he said, standing, fury a live wire in his veins. Adrian didn't argue, just followed, her silence heavier than words. At the sheriff's station, they sat for over an hour in a room that smelled of stale coffee and dust. Deputy Tanner finally ambled in, tired-eyed, toothpick rolling between his lips. He listened as Adrian recounted it, weeks of stalking, the slurs, the grab, the bruise, nodding at intervals, scribbling half-hearted notes. When she finished, he sighed. "We'll look into it," he said, leaning back. Michael stared, incredulous. "That's it." Tanner shrugged, toothpick bobbing. "Look, I get you're upset, but we got no witnesses. Did they take anything? Hit you worse than that?" Michael's voice sharpened, a blade. "She's got a bruise. They grabbed her." Tanner sighed again, louder. "If you can ID the guy who left it, maybe we can do something. Otherwise, it's just a claim a couple guys stood too close and said something she didn't like." Adrian flinched, a small recoil that cut Michael deeper than the words. He gritted his teeth. "So you'll wait till they do worse?" Tanner leaned forward, eyes hard. "Sir, go home. File the report. My advice, don't make waves." Michael stormed out, blood pounding. Adrian trailing behind, her arms wrapped tight again. Back home, she went straight to bed, the door clicking shut. Michael sat in the kitchen, staring at the shotgun's shadow under the bed through the open doorway. They'd crossed a line, hands on her, fear in her bones. He'd handle it, somehow, but her silence screamed louder than any threat. And he knew, Hollow Sands had sunk its claws in deep. Hey, comment number 1 if you think Michael should have taken matters into his own hands right then, or if you think he should have trusted the system a little longer. Like and subscribe for more raw stories like this. What happens when a man like Michael decides the law's not enough, and how far will Austin push before it's too late? The bruise on Adrian's collarbone stared at Michael like an accusation, a dark bloom against her skin that he couldn't erase. Hollow Sands had gone quiet since the assault, a deceptive stillness, the kind that hums before a storm breaks. Michael couldn't wait anymore. The shotgun under the bed wasn't enough to guard her silence, her fear. 2 nights after the hospital parking lot, he tracked Jason, the hulking mute of Austin's crew, to a gas station on the edge of town. The neon sign buzzed overhead, casting a sickly glow across the cracked pumps as Jason filled a jerry can. His broad back turned. Michael parked 100 yards off, headlights dark, and slipped out, tire iron cold and heavy in his grip. He moved fast, a shadow slicing through the night. Jason didn't hear him until the iron crashed into his ribs, a dull thud, then a grunt as he staggered, the can clattering to the pavement. Michael swung again, catching Jason's knee, dropping him to the asphalt. For Adrian, he whispered. Voice a razor's edge, then brought the iron down on Jason's shoulder crack. Like drywood snapping, Jason sprawled, gasping, blood trickling from his mouth, eyes wide but silent. Michael loomed over him, chest heaving, the iron dripping sweat and fury. He'd pictured this Jason broken, helpless, and it felt righteous. He left him there, a crumpled heap in the flickering light, and drove home, knuckles white on the wheel. Dawn greeted him with Adrian's soft breathing behind the locked bedroom door. He'd won, he thought, washing the tire iron in the sink, the water swirling red then clear. A warning sent they'd think twice now. But the dessert had other plans. Hours later, as the sun climbed high, a roar woke him, a crackling, hungry sound. He bolted outside, the air thick with smoke. Their shed where he kept tools, oil cans, memories of a life before Hollow Sands was ablaze, flames licking the sky, spitting embers into the dry yard. Adrian stumbled out behind him, robe flapping, her scream swallowed by the inferno's howl. The fire died under a neighbor's hose, but the damage was done. Charred wood, melted metal, a skeleton of what was. Then Michael saw it, on the porch, steps from their door, a pig's head, bloated and stinking, its eyes gouged out, carved into its flesh, jagged and deep. Next, Adrian's knees buckled. She sank to the dirt, hands over her mouth. Michael stood frozen, the stench clawing his throat, the words searing into his brain. Next, not a threat, a promise. The town watched from behind curtains, silent as vultures. No one calling for help, no sirens cutting the haze. Adrian's voice broke through, small and shattered. We can't win, Michael. She clutched his arm, tears streaking her face. They'll kill us. He pulled her close, her trembling vibrating through him. But his eyes stayed on the smoldering ruin. Yes, we can, he said, the words steel forged in rage. That night, he bought gasoline to cans, sloshing heavy in the trunk. He mapped Austin's routines: bar at dusk, home by midnight, truck parked on Route 9. The tire iron hadn't stopped them, it had lit a fuse. Jason's blood was just the start. Hollow Sands wanted war, and Michael would burn it down before it took her. The pig's head lingered in Michael's nostrils days after the fire, its rancid stink a ghost that clung to the house, to Adrian's hollow eyes. Hollow Sands simmered under an October sky, the desert wind rattling the bones of their ruined shed. Michael's gasoline cans sat in the garage, a promise unspoken, while the tire iron's weight still hummed in his hands from Jason's beating. He'd hurt them, felt the crack of bone, but the town's retaliation had sharpened the stakes. Adrian barely spoke now, her nights spent staring out the window, her days locked in the bedroom. Michael watched her fade, a light dimming under the weight of fear, and swore he'd end it. Late one evening, his phone rang, an unknown number. Michael, a voice gasped, distorted, breathless. It's Adrian, she's hurt. Quarry off Route 12. Hurry, his heart seized, a fist around his lungs. He grabbed the shotgun, keys jangling, and roared into the night. The desert blurring past in a haze of dust and dread. The quarry loomed ahead, a gaping scar in the earth, abandoned and silent under a sliver of moon. He skidded to a stop, boots crunching gravel, the shotgun cocked and ready. Adrian, he shouted, voice echoing off the cliffs. No answer, just the wind, mocking him. Then he heard it, a low chuckle, boots scuffing stone. Austin stepped from the shadows, baseball bat tapping his palm, a grin splitting his scarred face. Ricky flanked him, chain dangling from his fist, eyes darting. Jason loomed behind, ribs taped, a silent wall of hate. A trap. Michael's blood ran cold, then hot. Where is she? He snarled, leveling the gun. Austin laughed, sharp and cruel. Home, probably. Didn't need her for this. They'd fake the call, lured him here, alone. Before he could fire, Jason charged, a battering ram of muscle, knocking the shotgun wide. It clattered into the dust as Ricky's chain lashed out, catching Michael's arm, tearing skin. He fought back, raw and wild, slamming his elbow into Ricky's jaw. A yelp, then a snap as Ricky's arm broke, the chain dropping, but Austin swung the bat, a brutal arc that cracked against Michael's ribs. Pain exploded, white-hot, buckling his knees. Jason kicked him down, boots thudding into his side, each blow a hammer on anvil. She's next. Austin hissed, bat raised for another strike. Michael rolled, gasping, blood in his mouth, and grabbed a rock, smashed it into Jason's shin, toppling him. He staggered up, ribs screaming, and ran, their laughter chasing him into the dark. He stumbled home, broken and bleeding, the horizon glowing faint with dawn. Adrian met him at the door, eyes wide, packing a suitcase. The house was untouched, she'd been safe, oblivious to the call. "Where were you?" she cried, dropping the bag. He spat blood, voice hoarse. "They jumped me, faked it to get me out." Her face crumpled, hands shaking as she touched his bruised ribs. "This isn't you fighting back, it's us dying," she snapped, voice rising. "We're leaving." He gripped her wrists, desperate. "I'll end this, stay." She pulled free, tears falling. "You're killing us both." He sank to the floor, pain pulsing, the trap's echo ringing. They'd played him, and the cost was climbing. Michael's ribs throbbed like a drumbeat of defeat in the days after the quarry ambush. Each breath a reminder of Austin's bat, Jason's boots, Ricky's chain. Hollow Sands had drawn blood, his blood, and Adrian's words cut deeper still. "You're killing us both." She'd unpacked the suitcase, but her eyes stayed cold. Her silence a wall he couldn't breach. The gasoline cans in the garage gleamed in the dim light. A call he couldn't ignore. He'd tried warnings, Ricky's nose, Jason's ribs, but the town laughed, louder and crueler each time. No more half measures. He'd burn their fight out of them, under a moonless sky. Michael trailed Austin's pickup to a dirt lot off Route 9. The blonde bastard's nightly haunt after the bar. The truck sat alone, gleaming under a flickering street lamp, a prize too easy to resist. Michael moved silent, a predator in the dark, the cans sloshing as he doused the cab, the bed, the tires gasoline soaking into every seam. He lit a rag, tossed it, and ran. The explosion ripped the night apart, a fireball blooming orange and fierce, glass shattering, metal screaming. From a ridge half a mile off, he watched it burn, the heat kissing his face, a grim smile tugging his lips. Victory, sharp and bright. Austin would feel this. Morning brought chaos. Sirens wailed through Hollow Sands, whispers buzzing like flies. Michael stayed home, nursing his ribs, telling Adrian it was a late shift. She didn't ask, just brewed coffee, her back stiff. He thought he'd won until Sheriff Tanner's cruiser rolled up at noon. Dust swirling, 2 deputies hauled Michael out, cuffs biting his wrists. "Arson," Tanner snarled, smirking. "Austin's truck. Witnesses saw you skulking around." Michael's stomach dropped. Austin alive, framing him. At the station, Tanner leaned close, breath sour. "You're done, boy. Senator's son don't take kindly to this." Adrian bailed him out that night, $500 scraped from her savings. Her eyes ice as she handed over the cash. In the car, she didn't look at him. "This isn't you," she said, voice flat, final. He gripped the wheel, knuckles splitting where the cuffs had chafed. "It is now," he growled. "They won't stop till we're gone, or they are." She turned away, staring out at the desert's endless sprawl. Back home, he broke into Tanner's cruiser while the sheriff slept off a bottle stole patrol. Logs from the glove box, pages scribbled with Austin's haunts, his cruise plans. One entry chilled him. Friday, finish it. Her, tomorrow, a final strike. Michael spread the logs on the kitchen table, the gasoline's ghost still on. His hands, the explosion hadn't killed Austin, it had scarred him, enraged him. And now they were coming harder. Adrian slept, unaware, the bedroom door locked. He loaded the shotgun, checked the shells, his mind racing but clear. He'd gone all in, burned their symbol, crossed a line, and they'd answered with a promise of worse. Hollow Sands wasn't a town anymore. It was a battlefield, and Michael was done running. Tomorrow, he'd meet them head-on, whatever it took. The stolen patrol logs burned a hole in Michael's pocket as Friday loomed. The desert sun sinking low over Hollow Sands, casting long, menacing shadows. The explosion's echo still rang in his ears, his strike against Austin's truck. A flare of triumph snuffed out by the arson charge and Tanner's cuffs. Adrian's cold distance gnawed at him. She moved through the house like a ghost, her faith in him crumbling. He'd vowed to end it, to meet their finish it head-on, shotgun loaded and ready. But the day slipped sideways in a way he never saw coming. Unbeknownst to Michael, Adrian had cracked that morning while he scouted Austin's haunts route. 9. The bar, the quarry she'd slipped out, driven by desperation. She met Sheriff Tanner in his office, the air thick with dust and deceit. "Please," she begged, voice trembling, hands clasped tight. "Protect us. They're going to kill him, kill us both." Tanner leaned back, toothpick rolling. "A predator sizing up prey. File a report," he said, voice smooth as oil. "I'll see what I can do." She nodded, tears brimming, trusting. The lie. Tanner didn't file a thing. He dialed Austin instead, spilling her plea, her location. Her fear. Michael was miles away, crouched behind a gas pump, watching Austin's crew load crates into a van when his phone buzzed. Adrian's number. "They're here," she whispered, voice a threat of panic. "Michael." "They're in the house." His blood froze, then surged, a tidal wave of dread. He sprinted to the truck, tires screaming as he tore home. The desert, blurring into a nightmare. The front door hung open when he arrived, splintered wood dangling from the hinges. Inside, chaos, furniture overturned, glass shattered, a smear of blood on the kitchen floor. Adrian's blood. His knees buckled, a roar ripping from his throat. On the counter, a note in Austin's scrawl. "She's ours now." He tore through the house, shotgun shaking in his grip, calling her name, no answer. Just the wind howling through broken windows. The blood trail stopped at the back door, a red smear on the frame. She was gone. Taken. Michael stumbled outside, screaming into the dusk, his voice swallowed by the vast, uncaring desert. Tanner had sold her out. Adrian's plea for help twisted into a noose. She'd trusted the law, and it had handed her to the wolves. Michael's mind spun. Rage and guilt colliding. His war had pushed her to this, and now she was paying the price. The logs had warned him. Finish it. Her. He'd thought it meant an attack. Not this, not abduction, not betrayal. He sank to the porch, blood under his nails. The shotgun useless in his lap. Austin had her, and Hollow Sands had turned its back, complicit in the silence. Michael's world shattered, the pieces sharp and jagged. He'd burned their truck, broken their bones, but they'd struck deeper, stolen her from their home. From him. The fight wasn't over. It was personal now. A wound that wouldn't close until he found her or died trying. Comment number 1 if you think Adrian was wrong to trust Tanner, or if you think Michael's fight pushed her too far. Like and subscribe for the next brutal chapter. Can Michael claw her back from Austin's grip, or has Hollow Sands already claimed them? Both. The blood on the kitchen floor was still wet when Michael left, a scarlet stain driving him into the night like a man possessed. Adrian's abduction, her plea to Tanner, twisted into a trap, lit a fuse in him that no desert wind could snuff out. The patrol logs pointed him to Austin's desert compound, a ramshackle sprawl off Route 9, fence with rust and barbed wire. He loaded the shotgun, strapped Molotovs to his belt, glass bottles sloshing with gasoline and rage, and drove. The truck's rumble a war cry. Hollow Sands faded behind him, its silence a coward's shroud. This ended tonight. He parked a quarter-mile out, creeping through the scrub, the compound's lights flickering like a predator's eyes. Through a grimy window, he saw them, Austin barking orders, Ricky nursing his broken arm, Jason hulking by the door, all laughing, beers in hand, like they hadn't just ripped his world apart. Adrian was there, tied to a chair in the corner, head bowed, alive but bruised, her scrubs filthy. Michael's breath hitched, relief drowned by fury. He gripped the shotgun tighter, the Molotovs heavy against his hip. They'd pay in blood and fire. The back door hung loose, another careless mistake. Michael slipped in, a shadow among shadows, the air thick with sweat and booze. He moved fast, lighting the first Molotov and hurling it at the crates by the wall. Flames erupted, a roar of orange and heat, swallowing Ricky whole. His scream was high and brief, cut off as he collapsed, a burning heap. Jason spun, reaching for a pistol, but Michael charged shotgun but crashing into his skull. A sickening crack, and Jason dropped, blood pooling under his shaved head, eyes blank, to down. Austin fired, a wild shot from a handgun that grazed Michael's shoulder, searing pain blooming red. He didn't flinch. Rage was his armor now. He tackled Austin, the gun skittering across the floor, and they hit the ground hard. A tangle of fists and snarls. Austin clawed at his face, spitting slurs. "You're dead, you filth." But Michael's hands found his throat. He squeezed, thumbs digging into Austin's windpipe, feeling the cartilage buckle. Austin's eyes bulged, hands flailing, then went limp. A snap, final and sharp. The blonde tyrant slumped, neck broken, his reins snuffed out in the dirt. Smoke choked the room, flames licking higher, the compound a furnace. Michael staggered to Adrian, cutting her ropes with a knife from his boot. She collapsed into him, sobbing, her body trembling against his. "I've got you," he rasped, blood dripping from his shoulder, staining her torn scrubs. They limped out, the fire's roar chasing them into the night, the compound crumbling behind. He thought it was over. 3 bodies, ablaze, justice carved in violence. Adrian clung to him, alive, and that was enough. They stumbled to the truck, the dessert swallowing the inferno's glow, Hollow Sands none the wiser. Michael drove, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping hers, his shoulder screaming, his ribs a dull ache. The shotgun lay between them, spent, but warm. He'd ended a tricky burned. Jason cracked, Austin snapped. The war was won. He told himself, the taste of blood and ash bitter on his tongue. But as Adrian stared out the window, silent and broken, he felt the weight of what he'd become. Hollow Sands had taken her once tonight and he'd taken it back. For now, they were free. For now. The desert stretched endless and black as Michael and Adrian fled the burning compound. The truck's engine a low growl beneath their ragged breaths. His shoulder bled steadily, a hot pulse under the makeshift bandage Adrian had tied, her hands still trembling from the rope's bite. Hollow Sands lay quiet behind them, the fire's glow a fading scar on the horizon. They holed up in a motel 50 miles out, a crumbling roadside dive with flickering lights and a clerk who didn't ask questions. For 3 days, they planned new names, a new state, anywhere but Arizona's jaws. Michael slept with the shotgun by the bed, Adrian's silence louder than the hum of the AC. He thought they'd won. Austin dead, his crew ash, the nightmare torched. On the 4th morning, as they packed the truck with what little they had left, tires crunched gravel outside. Sheriff Tanner's cruiser rolled up, flanked by 2 black SUV feds, badges glinting like knives in the dawn. Michael's stomach sank, a stone in deep water. Tanner stepped out, smirking, toothpick rolling, as agents swarmed, guns drawn. Michael Carter, one barked, "You're under arrest, murder, arson." Assault Senator Hales filing it all. Austin's father, the state senator, had swung the hammer. Michael froze, shotgun useless in the truck. Adrian's gasp cutting the air. "What's this?" he snarled, hands raised, blood crusting his shirt. Tanner leaned close, voice a venomous drawl. "You didn't think it'd end with a fire, did ya? Austin's daddy owns this state. You're the villain now. Killed 3 innocent boys in cold blood." Evidence twisted like a noose, witnesses claiming Michael hunted them unprovoked. Photos of the compound staged to hide Adrian's ropes, her bruises. The feds cuffed him, metal biting his wrists, his shoulders screaming as they shoved him toward the SUV. Adrian lunged, crying, "No, he saved me." But an agent blocked her, and then she spoke, voice breaking. "I made a deal." Michael's world tilted. "What?" he rasped, twisting in the cuffs. Her eyes met his, wet and shattered. "I told Tanner I'd testify. Say you went too far, lost control. He promised to let you go if I did." She sobbed, hands over her mouth. "I thought it'd save you." Tanner laughed, a dry, jagged sound. "She sold you out, boy. Said you snap fits the story perfect." Michael roared her name, voice raw. As the feds dragged him into the vehicle, Adrian turned away, tears streaming, her betrayal a blade in his gut. The town celebrated that night, bonfires lit, beers raised to justice. Hollow Sands spun the tale. Michael, the deranged outsider, butchered Austin and his friends. A menace stopped by the senator's might. Adrian vanished from the narrative, her deal buried, her silence bought. Michael sat in a cell, cuffs bruising, the desert night pressing through the bars. He'd burned their empire, snapped Austin's neck, thought he'd saved her. But she'd traded him for peace, and the system twisted his victory into chains. The war was over, and Hollow Sands had won. Its final play a trap he'd never outrun. Years bled into iron bars after Michael's arrest. The desert's heat replaced by the cold clang of prison walls. March 2025 found him in a cell block in northern Arizona, a ghost among the living. His name whispered like a curse, Adrian's. Betrayal had locked him away, her testimony painting him a monster. A deal with Tanner that spared her and damned him. Senator Hale's machine churned out convictions, triple murder, arson. A life sentence with no parole. Hollow Sands rebuilt. Its scars hidden under fresh paint. Austin's death a martyr's tale. Michael sat, scarred hands idle. The man who'd burned for her reduced to a number. But chains couldn't hold him forever. 18 months in, he escaped, slipped a guard's key during a riot, scaled a wall under cover of chaos, and vanished. Into the desert night. Word spread slow, then fast. Michael Carter was loose. A phantom with blood on his hands. He hunted Tanner first, tracking the sheriff to a trailer on the edge of Hollow Sands. No fire this time, no shotgun, just a knife, quick and quiet. He left Tanner alive, paralyzed from the neck down, a wheezing wreck whispering, "You're a devil." Michael didn't answer, just walked away, the blade clean, the message carved in flesh. He disappeared after that, a shadow slipping through Arizona's underbelly towns like Hollow Sands, where the oppressed whispered his name. Rumors grew. He'd torched a Klan hideout in Yuma, broken a man's legs for spitting slurs in Tucson. No proof, just stories, a legend stitched from fear and hope. Adrian resurfaced far off in Oregon. A nurse again, her eyes older, her laugh gone. She lived free but haunted, sleeping with lights on, jumping at shadows knowing he was out there. Somewhere, Hollow Sands trembled too, its people locking doors, peering through blinds, swearing they saw him in every dust storm. Michael had lost everything, his wife to betrayal, his soul to vengeance, his freedom to a cage he'd clawed out of. But his fight left echoes in bars and backyards. The beaten down spoke of him, a man who'd faced the beast and scarred it, who'd turned hate's fire back on itself. He wasn't a hero, not anymore, just a broken figure who'd fought when no one else would. The desert remembered, its winds carrying his name, a warning to the cruel, cross a line, and he might find you, some nights, alone in whatever hideout. He'd carved caves, abandoned shacks, he'd stare at his hands, the knuckles split from a war that never ended. He'd saved Adrian, lost her, become something else. The narrator's voice cuts through. Some monsters are born to fight monsters. Michael had protected her, delivered a jagged justice. But the cost was steep. He'd traded his light for shadow, his life for a myth. Hollow Sands feared him now, a specter they'd forged. And in that fear lived a spark, resistance, raw and unyielding, for those who'd rise after him. The tale of Michael and Adrian in Hollow Sands isn't just a story, it's a mirror reflecting the raw edges of human struggle. One lesson screams loud: justice isn't handed out, it's forged. Michael trusted the system, Sheriff Tanner, the law to shield them from hate, but it turned its back, complicit in silence. He learned the hard way that when the world fails you, you either bend or break something to make it right. His fists, his fire, his rampage, they weren't pretty, but they were his answer when words ran dry. Another truth cuts deeper: love can push you to the brink and pull you apart. Adrian's betrayal wasn't malice, it was fear, a desperate bid to save them both that shattered Michael instead. It shows how far we'll go for those we hold dear, even if it means losing them. The cost of fighting monsters is the third scar this story leaves. Michael became what he hated: a shadow, a myth born from blood and ash. He won, in a way, scattering Austin's crew and etching fear into Hollow Sands, but victory hollowed him out. It's a stark reminder: every battle takes a piece of you, and some leave you unrecognizable. Yet there's a flicker of inspiration. His defiance sparked whispers, a legacy for the oppressed. One man's fall can light a fire for others to rise. Hollow Sands taught us that hate festers where silence reigns, but courage, even jagged and flawed, can crack it open. So, what do you think? Did Michael's fight make him a hero or a monster? Comment below, hit like if this story gripped you, subscribe for more tales of grit and justice, and share it with someone who'd stand against the odds. Thanks for walking this desert road with me. May you find strength to face your own battles, and may shadows never dim your light.